filled with amazing keys. Listen for them. They whisper.
I want to know how was this process for you, because this is the third time, for you it's the second time that you tried to pitch this show.
Right.
How was this process for you? Did you live this with anxiety? Tell me all this a little.
I think it's unprecedented that a show has been made 3 different pilots, but I think finally at the end we got to a good result. I think that it was a long and winding road, but it gave us time to really examine creatively what we needed to do, what was important, and also learn from the other attempts. And I'm really proud of the final result.
Yeah, and in a way, also there's the additional luck that every talent involved in develop any of the 3 versions of this was very high quality professionals in their area. We got very lucky to have amazing directors every time that we tried to make this done, amazing writers, incredibly talented production designers. So in a way, not only you have a lot of piled experience, but also piled top of the line experience in each of these attempts. And I think in a way, as Carlton has mentioned a couple of times, it was the persistence and a vision that this story actually had a lot of potential and certainly has an audience that's waiting for this kind of stories is what is keeping the driving force behind it. So I'm especially, since I've been watching this entire production process more from the outside as a witness mostly, I've been kindly invited to see all this happening. But for me, it's I'm very happy that the people that I know that has put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on this is finally getting the show into the air, because I think this is probably the best we could get out of this story with the conditions and talent that we have, and I'm very proud that what they achieved really reflects all the potential of the story itself.
Are you my echo?
Yes.
You kept Jackson from the other pilot. What did you see in him, and how was the rest of the casting for this show?
I mean, Jackson was Bodhi. I mean, he was it was hard, it was impossible to imagine once seeing him do the part, even for Hulu, that he was not the guy. He was exactly as I imagined the character when I read him, I think as he existed in the comics. So he was just, and everyone agreed. There was no argument about that. The rest of the story changed a lot as we moved it. As you tell a story, small changes become additive, and it's like pulling a thread from a tapestry. It changes the whole composition of the narrative. And so when we redeveloped the show for Netflix, the story changed, and then when we cast, we felt like we needed to be sure the actors were exactly right for this version. And we got really lucky. We found tremendous actors, and Netflix was also willing to just let us cast the best actors and not go for names.
Did you help them to build the characters? You know them by heart, so.
Well, one of the things that was very magical for me when I got invited to visit Toronto when they were shooting scenes for the TV show was actually seeing the actors playing the characters and immediately feeling them like the characters themselves.
This isn't a game. We don't know what they do.
You woke me up.
You were talking before about the architecture of the house. How hard was to build this house from the ground?
The problem was we didn't have that much time because to build a house takes a long time, and we were racing production. So we had crews working double shifts building this house. They were one crew would leave and another crew would keep going to keep working on it because it was very elaborate and
insanely elaborate.
So it was an incredible logistical challenge to build the entire house in about 12 weeks.
Yeah. Well, and how did you design the house? So are you happy with the results?
Absolutely. It was very insane to visit the sets and walk inside these hallways and everything, because despite the obvious changes that you have to make because of budget restriction or not just that, because for example, it's different to draw a house over and over than to shoot it with a camera. In a way, the way in which the light behaves and the way you need to move the camera around the space and everything, make them that you need to make like
And have
changes
flow for the actors
exactly.
to be able to go from space to
Exactly.
space.
But then being on the sets and watching at what's built of the house and seeing details here and there that are obvious references to the stuff that was done in the comic was like insanely funny and flattering and also like in a way overwhelming. So it was a very like exciting experience for me to visit, but then also to realize.
One of my most exciting experiences was watching Gabriel visit and seeing his reaction when he walked into the house the first time, and I was so happy that
Yeah.
you
You were
liked
checking
it.
up on him all the time, trying to see if he was happy.
Yes, exactly. I wanted to be sure he was happy, and I still remember the expression on your face when we walked into the foyer
it
of the
was
house.
insane.
Yeah, same with the kids. Which one was the trickiest to maybe achieve the effect that you wanted to show us?
I think the Crown of Shadows key was the hardest. I mean, I know because I was still doing visual effects a week and a half ago, and the show's coming on next Friday. But it was just the idea of a key that you put this crown on your head and it brings shadows to life and you could command them. And so trying to visualize that and to make the shadows go from being two-dimensional to being three-dimensional. And they're shadows, so they're innately they're black. So how do you actually make them look like they're creatures? And I mean, it's just there are a lot of problems to be solved physically in terms of how to actually manifest it, and probably the same problems that Gabriel had trying to draw them initially.
In a way, the very nature of these keys is that they can bend reality and make it turn into things that are absolutely impossible in everyday life. So to try to translate that to a medium that's much more restricted because on paper I don't have to deal with gravity and stuff like that. With 3D, I can make I can simulate that, but not being stuck to its rules, so I can bend it as much as I need in order to tell the story on a page.
Whatever you think you understand about those keys,